dialogue, and to a lesser degree, writing. Something that comes at a close second behind graphics, which is why it's the next topic on the gaming totem pole. It is something that unfortunately is required in almost every single form of game, whether that be your random indie roguelike or even some trashy hentai game on Steam. If you make a character in your game, they kind of need to talk. It may not always be with their mouth, but there will always be something there. And a lot of writers obviously need to write a lot of the text that you see. With this video, I'm going to outline both good and stupid types of game dialogue. But before I continue, let's make the distinction. There is bad voice acting, and then there's bad writing. Games do exist that have both, but 99% of the time, the writing is what's bad.
I'm the light bringer. I'm the fucking universe.
To biometric readings, this is Patrol.
It is? Crispy critters.
Did I just do that?
Well, definitely with my assistance.
I did not just do that.
We did.
I just moved shit with my mind.
Perhaps our connection has somehow awoken some abilities.
I just
Cyberpunk is a great example of good, somewhat natural dialogue, with different stats and life path choices to affect how your V reacts to people. Each path giving you very specific viewpoints on how you would approach a situation. In the reverse case, games like to use something I call turn-based dialogue. It's the most common way games portray conversations. This character talks, you wait half a second, and now it's the other person's turn to talk. This is because most commonly they record voice acting work separately. It's then edited by whomever, the audio engineers or whoever the fuck's job it is to do that, which is how we get this step-by-step conversations.
Now, Tolland.
You again?
Now this is very bad, obviously, because natural conversation, whether fiction or not, is filled with imperfections. Not every developer has the resources or the position to have that freedom, of course, but I think they could just edit the clips like slightly closer together and it could be an easy solution. I mean, Cyberpunk kind of does that. And to counterpoint my own point, because yeah, I can fucking do that. I'm freaking powerful. It's probably also some 100-hour game where you're basically reading a 10-page essay or some shit. So it makes sense for that type of dialogue to exist. Uh-oh, we do have a recurring offender in what I would like to call the bad category, Square Enix. Now it may seem obvious to you, these are Japanese developers, created and written by Japanese people. Throughout half a century though, one thing has remained consistent, and that's the trademark dumbed down campy dialogue. There's probably fucking hundreds of examples of this type, which could be a whole ass video on its own. But for now, I'll focus on Square Enix because it is so egregious how they write these characters. Overseas media already has to jump through like 100 hoops when it comes to proper localization and translation. It's one thing to read something stupid, but it's a lot fucking worse to actually hear it.
I should have been the one to fill your dark soul with light.
Welcome home, honey. Took your sweet time. Psych.
What? I should kick your fucking ass.
Now, I understand why these games are animated and sound this way. They're obviously not made for me. I just happen to like the different aspects of the other parts of the game, and not specifically that stuff. However, I see no reason why this type of dialogue should also be used in games. This is doubly the case when they've released games that don't sound this way. It's the real reason why people play or watch shit in different languages. They refuse to bear with the cringe of the English language, when the writing itself is what was objectively cringe. It's very likely nothing to do with the voice acting. Or it could largely be a translation issue, as that was the case for much of these older games. Which brings me to Exhibit B, the, as you know, Bobby exchange. The best instance of this problem is Dragon Age The Veilguard. The characters in this game are trying their best to repeat the same shit to you as many times as possible. The idea is that the developers are trying to get the characters to inform the player about what is currently going on in the story. Now, why else would you do something like that unless you think that idiots are playing your game? I mean, it could have to do with the overall decline of the attention spans of gamers, or maybe that because even when playing single player games, a lot of people have stuff going on the third monitor. Okay, I'm guilty. I'm one of those people, but you know, unless it's a story game, I kind of, you know, blend it out. If I'm playing a story game, okay, maybe I am kind of stupid, but like that stupid that you have to repeat the same lines like 5 times. You might as well have just like put in giant text in the middle of the screen, "You're neurodivergent," because at that point you're insulting me by assuming that I didn't read it 5 times in a row. Now, it's a little bit weird for me to care about something like this, but sometimes I have a tougher time reading the sheer amount of text most games that I love actually have, especially when you boot up the game and the first thing they do is just fart out lines of script. It's hard to not be bored or overwhelmed by how much you're expected to absorb immediately. The sheer amount of work that writers put into it, I fight the urge to skip dialogue so I can appropriately enjoy or hate whatever I'm reading. Fallout New Vegas has many characters that are well written while being filled with thousands of lines of voice acted dialogue. So it's pretty easy to handpick good examples to show you what I'm talking about. They're all different depending on which dilapidated idiot you're speaking to in the wasteland. The Mojave has hundreds of interesting characters and people with their own ideals and morals. People like Boxcars and Joshua Graham. Boxcars is probably the most realistic depiction of what you would get from a person if they were in the same situation as him.
We get in position, and next thing we know, we're surrounded by those fucking Legion freaks. They dragged us and everybody else into the center of town. And that asshole with a dog on his head, he starts talking about how we're bad people. He said we needed to be punished for what we did. Not all of us, but some of us. And then he gives everyone a fucking lottery ticket. I don't know. I just love it here. What the fuck do you think, asshole? Prize for second place was I got to live, but they beat my fucking legs with hammers. I'm fucking crippled, get it? Don't act like you'd be doing me a favor. I don't give a fuck.
Even if the courier wasn't the one to do it to him, I'd be pissed off too if I just got the shit beat out of me. Today's subject: slavery. Now, the survival horror genre are probably the kings of weird-ass stunted dialogue. Some of them just do it better than others. The Resident Evil series are the kings of shitty one-liners and awkward conversations.
This way!
Oh, Barry!
That was too close. You were almost a Jill sandwich.
You're right.
No way, Leon.
Way?
Are you out of your mind?
I knew you'd be fine if you landed on your butt.
This sort of makes sense for these games because they're basically B-grade action films, but like morphed into survival horror games. They're supposed to be corny. Unless you're Leon, because Shinji Mikami upgraded the hell out of his writing skill to drop bangers like these.
Women.
Honestly, I think Resident Evil 4 is the perfect combo of goofy one-liners and decent dialogue, so it's less of a problem and more of an odd one out. Silent Hill also has all different types of awkward dialogue, but it's something that is so strange and disjointed that it's charming in a way. It's hot as hell in here. It almost made me more interested in hearing what they had to say. That was something that was missing a little bit in the remake that when I played it. I talk about that a little later in a Silent Hill video that I'm definitely making. It's coming soon-ish. TM Cyberpunk 2077. I could focus on all kinds of aspects of this game because all of the characters are pretty well written to a certain extent. The main person I want to focus on is Keanu Silverhand, baby. Ooh, my man Johnny boy. Johnny is such a good fucking character, not because it's Keanu obviously, but because the guy is just fucking funny, alright? Like, in the beginning, he's like kind of a jackass, right? He's a huge prick. But it makes sense though, right? Because you guys don't know each other and you're both gonk little bitches anyway. It'll take some time for you to get to know each other. But his lines of dialogue are delivered so heavenly. Everything he says is interesting purely because of the random timing of it all. Like the moment he instant transmissions on screen, I gotta kind of hold myself because I might just start giggling for no reason. You can learn so much about the world alone just by listening to Johnny talk out loud, which is a little detail that I really appreciate about characters like him.
Only two willing to spread their legs for you.
weapons inside.
Sad.
Go eat a dick, Johnny.
He's fucked in the head. The world's fucked in the head. And you're fucked in the head because my fucked up head is inside it. Guess if you want to save the world, that's the first step. Get fucked in the head.
Well, well. Who knew Johnny Silverhand's a lover of fine art?
Not me. One of my exes. She was a painter. Bona fide psycho. Like all of them. The sex, though. Can't even begin to describe it.
Yeah, I'd really rather you didn't.
Several games have the assumption that the idea of a human-looking being even deciding to talk to you is super interesting on its own. They yap exposition at you and then quickly prompt you afterward to ask more questions as if you gave a fuck about what they were talking about in the first place. You know, you kind of have to work for that in a video game. Most people don't like read this shit. And believe me, like seriously, I wish that wasn't the case. I would love more effort to be put in better writing and less into fucking really ugly anti-aliasing. It's truly an art form to know when silence is stronger than some dumb fuck one-liner that will never land unless you're the person who wrote it.
Yeah, Angel does it again.
This was one to remember.
But then again, I am the one walking around with this in my house, so what the fuck do I know? I just like playing video games, and a bit of junk food dialogue is good every now and then. Just make sure to learn when it's time to shut the fuck up, which it's my time now. See, I'm learning. I already learned. I know when to stop talking, especially when it comes.
It ain't nothing like a fist full of cash or a bliss full of the hash that twists like a mustache from end to end, spread it like a rash. From talking through your Walkman or at your disco bash.